Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner, and we have a one-of-a-kind first-time album fight today. This is huge, fellas. We've got our judges, Dr. Tim Furnish, who's been on the show before, as well as also several times being the judge, Scott Burford. We've been waiting to do this one, and it is huge. We've got, get this, Led Zeppelin fighting Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy versus what we all call Led Zeppelin IV, but if you want me to say Led Zeppelin Untitled, I will say that as well. But let's get Phil's corner call. Phil?
This week's album fight is an 8-round matchup of two albums from one of the most successful, innovative, and influential rock bands of all time, Led Zeppelin.
In the red corner, we have one of the best-selling albums of all time, Zeppelin's Untitled 4th studio album from 1971, Led Zeppelin IV. And its opponent in the blue corner, representing a stylistic turning point for Zeppelin, we have their 5th studio album from 1973, Houses of the Holy. Let's get ready to ramble.
Take it away, judges.
All right. So that's it. That makes it official. You understand what we're dealing with here. Now let's go ahead and get Richard's pre-fight analysis. Richard?
Let's take the greatest band in the history of rock and roll, you heard me, Pete Turner, and take two of their best albums and put them up against each other. Yes, please. We have a super heavyweight fight on our hands here. I don't have to do a lot of talking about the album, so let's just get down and dirty on the numbers. Led Zeppelin IV is hands down the most familiar of the two albums. It has Black Dog and Stairway on it, two of their most iconic and popular songs. Add rock and roll, and this looks like a landslide. But it's not really. Let's take a deep dive. In 7 critics categories, 4 gets 5, and the other 2 ended up being ties. In the 4 popularity categories, though, Houses of the Holy came out on top with 3, with 4 only really winning 1 category, and that's album sales. But it was by a lot, over double what Houses sold. Combining all categories, Led Zeppelin IV comes out winning 6-3 to 2 ties. Those ties could either make it an easy win for 4, or could even the fight out to a possible split decision. So what rounds should we look at here? For Houses of the Holy, look to rounds 3, 6, and 8. For Led Zeppelin IV, look to rounds 1, 4, and 7. Also new this week, potential rounds for knockdowns due to the numbers. For Houses of the Holy, round 6 looks to be their strongest against a weaker round for Led Zeppelin IV. And for Led Zeppelin IV, round 4 could be a potential 10-8 round for that album. So looking at the numbers, I think we have a stronger showing for Led Zeppelin IV, and I'd guess it'll win 5 rounds to 3. Back to you guys.
Yeah, this is going to be close, and it's going to be crazy, and I don't know whose idea this was. It probably was mine, but I love doing this. Scott, what are your thoughts going into the fight?
Well, Pete, I hope you don't mind the 227 emails I sent you wanting to do a Led Zeppelin album fight, so thank you for not blocking me. Well, my thoughts are this. I got both of these albums when I was 15 years old, and I'm about to turn 52. So I've probably listened to each one over 1,000 times. Now, that doesn't make me a Led Zeppelin expert or know any more than anybody else. As a matter of fact, I probably know less than anybody else. But I love these two albums. And the fact that we're fighting them off against each other is totally cool. So I'm ready, man. I'm ready and excited.
Tim, how about you? What are your thoughts going into the fight?
Pete, dare I say it, there will be no quarter in this battle.
Yes.
But beyond that...
Well, speaking of no quarter, I do want to make sure I mention this before I forget it. We have our CompuBox, our unofficial judges, who are all basically judges anyhow, but in this case, their scorecards don't count towards the official outcome. But I do want to point out the cowardice of Michael Lipari, who had a draw. So if I forget to mention it later on, Mike Lipari, I've known you for decades, and you are a coward.
Mike, I don't know you, but a draw is the last refuge of a scoundrel.
That's right. Leave it to Tim to doctor it up.
And Mike, karma's a bitch, man, so watch out. Look behind your back.
Everybody's sticking a knife in Mike.
Dude, let me say this beyond my little bon mot there. Sort of like with Aerosmith, when we did the Aerosmith versus Boston thing, I have to confess, and since I'm a Lutheran and we do sometimes have confession, I have to confess that in high school, and I'm much younger than that young whippersnapper there with you, okay, or much older, I should say, 6 years older. I was not a big Zeppelin fan because Zeppelin was one of the favorite bands of the dope, smoky, non-jock crowd with whom I did not hang out much. So it was only after nominally hit adulthood that I came to appreciate Zeppelin, but I've come to appreciate them a great deal in this. I mean, and let me say too, most of the time I listen to Zeppelin, I have to say over the last several decades has been either in the weight room or driving. And, you don't pay a whole heck of a lot of attention to the lyrics. And also you don't listen really closely. So I was listening closely to both of these albums with earphones on and actually read the lyrics. So I am much more informed about Zeppelin.
I'm looking forward to see what you guys think too, because lyrics are obviously they're a personal specific kind of thing, but like we had Billy Idol last week for the show, and I was surprised at the depth. Kafka made an appearance in terms of references, and I'm like, the Billy Idol is actually writing something that's
impressive.
Yeah, exactly. It's got some thought. Maybe it sucks, maybe it doesn't suck. That's for the person to decide. But Kafka from Billy Idol, I was surprised by that. So, fellas, anything to say before we start? Otherwise, I'm going to tee it up.
Let's go,
man. Let's go, Pete.
Round one. This is fun. I love doing this. Let me just say this real quick, too. These albums are in here, all of them, all of the album fights, because we love this music, and we want you guys to be exposed to music maybe you've missed out on, be re-exposed to things. Just look at music that we love in a different way. We love this. This is a way of evaluating art. It's a compare and contrast. So when we are critical, understand that I've bought the box set twice, the whole box set, every single disc from Led Zeppelin. So we love these acts. Don't think that we don't, for not even for 1 second. Round one, Song Remains the Same versus Black Dog. Ha! Go ahead, Tim. Try that.
Okay. Well, to echo what you were just saying, Pete, there's really no such thing, I don't think, as a bad Led Zeppelin song. It's just some are better than others. All right, Black Dog, at the risk of being redundant, great guitar intro. I mean, is there a bad guitar intro to a Led Zeppelin song? Is there a bad guitar in a Led Zeppelin song? I don't quite understand naming this song, which is sort of the quintessential oversexed 70s rock and roll song. Is that redundant to say oversexed in 70s?
No.
Why name it after
Led Zeppelin?
No, of course not. Why name it after the dog supposedly that hung out at the studio? Although I don't know, maybe there's a sexual innuendo there. I do have to say one of the Led Zeppelin lyrics that's most perplexed me over the years is "A big-legged woman ain't got no soul," and I'll probably be noodling on that at 3 a.m. tonight. It's a good song. It's a really good song. The song remains the same. Kind of like the album difference, I guess, arguably, that you get it's a little more mainstream kind of rock, I guess, and arguably in Houses of the Holy and a little less bluesy, grungy than Led Zeppelin IV. It goes back and forth between acoustic and electric, again, like a lot of Zeppelin songs. The lyrics are kind of throwaway. They're kind of a pastiche, I guess, of tour impressions of what they're supposed to be, right? One thing struck me about this particular, and I'd forgotten it on this song. I thought Plant's vocal range is always amazing, but it struck me right off the bat with "The Song Remains the Same." Just what incredible vocal range this guy has. Who else has that vocal range in rock? Maybe Freddie Mercury or somebody. I don't know. About it. But then they do that last bit, and according to one of the things I read, they actually sped it up in the studio. It sounds Alvin the Chipmunky toward the end of the song. It gets I think it goes off the rails a little bit, but still. I think The Song Remains the Same is the better of these two songs, and I gave it to that 10-9.
Scott, how did you do it?
So I'll start with The Song Remains the Same also. It's got an incredible opening riff. So when you pop this thing in and you start listening to it, I mean, right away you hear this clean, crisp sound. And Tim used the word grungy to define Black Dog, which I think is really accurate. And it kind of that word grungy kind of describes the sound on Led Zeppelin IV, but it's so different now, and The Song Remains the Same. It's clean, crisp production. You hear the guitars right out front, kind of twangy. It's different. It's got a great opening riff. They ended up using this song to open up their concerts in 77 and 79 tours. So this was an opening song, the way the band saw it. I love the way that vocals don't come in for, about 45 seconds. So you just hear the music. And for me, Led Zeppelin's always been about the music. So the only thing I don't like about The Song Remains the Same, and Tim, you brought this up, is that they sped up Robert Plant's vocal just slightly, but only as much as it just brought the pitch up. And I just find it a little bit annoying. Again, it's hard. I love this song, so it's hard to take shots at it, but that is really the only thing I don't like about The Song Remains the Same. So Black Dog, you get that little guitar, that little muffled guitar riff at the very beginning, and then Plant just starts wailing. I mean, that is to me, you think about songs in rock history and you just go, yeah, that is like the definition of kick-ass classic rock when you hear the beginning about this song. There's another thing. Plant's vocal on this song is unique, I think, as opposed to all other Led Zeppelin songs, where it's like this stop-start a cappella type vocal, where the band stops, he sings, the band starts again and stops, and he sings. There's a Fleetwood Mac song called Oh Well that was recorded about 2 years before this. It was the first time I'd ever heard it. And I think that they were maybe stealing a little bit from Peter Green on the way that they laid out this track. It's a fantastic song. And I think, you look at it being the first song on this album, the band had been pretty heavily criticized on Led Zeppelin 2 and 3. The critics hated them. That's a generalization. But that's what they felt. And so I think they felt like they had to come out of the gate really pounding away, legendary song, and they got it with Black Dog. So to me, it's a winner in round 1, 10-9 over The Song Remains the Same, but it's a close one.
Yeah, this is a close round because what do you like? What do you prefer? So, Song Remains the Same. My first note is so much guitar. I mean, it's like they've got a guitar tech there just handing him different guitars nonstop, and then he's got every kind of effect, and he probably did it all with 2 guitars, kind of thing. But he's just so much Jimmy Page in the song. It's everywhere, but he manages for it to not be too much. And this is unfair to Brian May, but I feel like Brian May shows up, and you're like, oh, there's Brian May again. And it's just... It's too triumphant. It's too big, and it's like I don't have the I can't stand the peakiness of that triumphant guitar hurly sound. But here's the whole thing is guitar, and I love how Jimmy Page lays this down. Obviously, the drumming is great here because John Bonham is just fantastic, and I think in particular, this album and this song, John Paul Jones is just fantastic. Sometimes he's doubling with Jimmy Page. Sometimes he's just, thumbing like a couple of strings, but just laying that rock hard foundation that allows Jimmy to fill the rest of the space up. I think it's great. And I love that groove that they have. And like you guys, I just don't care for cartoon soundy Plant, even if he's not unnaturally getting there. I like all of it, like you guys, but if I'm going to pick a net, bring it down a little bit, just a little less, crazy voice. Black Dog, the vocals are so much better in this song. It's so much more comfortable, and it's less distracting, and that's really what it is. I love how, and nowadays headphones, you don't know which ear's got which ear, so you don't look left or right on your earbuds, so I don't know where in the channel it's supposed to be, but that Jimmy Page chord goes, and it lives in my right ear in how I was listening to it during Black Dog. It just sits there and it hangs, and then, Robert Plant just kind of sings over the top of it, and I just loved that use of stereo. It wasn't obtrusive, and it was just such a cool thing. I love it, and I think just for me, I do think that Song Remains the Same is a little more complex. There's a little more going on, and Black Dog, though I think sonically I enjoyed it more, I do think that there's a higher level of mastery going on in Song Remains the Same. So I went 10-9, Song Remains the Same. Let's go. Round 2, Rock and Roll versus Rain Song. Scott, kick us off.
Okay, well, Rock and Roll, I mean, this is probably one of the most recognized Led Zeppelin songs. But, when I was a kid, like I said earlier, I was 15 when I got this album. And the thing you do when you're 15 is you make mixtapes, right? You throw the LP on and you get the TDK D90, and then you just go to town and hit that pause button and you make your mixtape. So I was making mixtape of Led Zeppelin all the time. But I never put Rock and Roll on, or maybe only a couple of times. It's a great song, but it's super basic song. I mean, it's like a 50s. I think Page compared it to like a 50s song, and maybe a tribute to Benny King or Elvis or Chuck Berry, or maybe a combination of all those guys. So Rock and Roll was okay. It's on a great album. Let me talk about the Rain Song because, George Harrison, so he reportedly told John Bonham that the problem with you guys is you've never done a ballad. That's my George Harrison impersonation. So Page says, I'll give you a ballad, and he came up with this song, right? So I gotta say, I'm a big fan of the Mellotron. That is a really cool, the way they can make a Mellotron sound like a symphony. You think a symphony's there in a room, and it's not. It's a little machine, like about 2 by 3 feet, right? And John Paul Jones took over this thing, and he brought a new sound to the band. They'd never had a Mellotron on any of those songs before, and here they are. I mean, it's been used by King Crimson and Moody Blues, and actually the Beatles also used the Mellotron, and it's great on the Rain Song. It's just it's not melancholy. It's restrained greatness. It showed a lot of restraint on Page's part to arrange this song. It's unlike anything Led Zeppelin had done to this point. So for me, Rain Song 10, Rock and Roll 9.
Wow, look at you. I like it. Well, I'll do my round 2. Rock and Roll for me, the drumming instantly familiar. This is a fast-moving Zeppelin song. It's kind of funny when they say, been a long time since a rock and roll, because you're like, didn't you guys just start by rocking with Black Dog? Yeah. Was that going to go?
They played 72 concerts the year before. Yeah.
Right. Like, how about just we rock all the time? Something. But anyhow, that's just a little silly thing. Sometimes I do question some of Plant's lyrics or Page's lyrics, depending on who's writing them. And you're like, I wish you guys would make slightly better choices, or, I don't know, more evolved choices, but just not who they are. And maybe for the time, those are great choices. I don't know. Anyhow, I did say this note, John Paul Jones, damn kid, it's just a great job inside of Rock and Roll. He's just got everything down in the right place, and of course Jimmy Page is doing everything he needs to do to make Rock and Roll a great song. And then Rain Song, I felt like the strings were a little bit dated, like the string sounds that they had. Maybe it was because it comes out of a machine, but I was like, this is just like the way they're arranged and everything. I was the first time I thought, this nearly 50-year-old album has a little bit of wear on it, and I didn't hear that too often, but I for sure heard it there. I think Rock and Roll just does more, though, and gets there in a higher place. And I'm not worn out by the high-paced things yet, so George Harrison can be wrong about that. But I went 10-9 for Led Zeppelin IV. Tim?
Rock and Roll. Okay.
Let me see if I can do Harrison on this. Lads, you don't do any... No, I can't do it. All right. So,
that was better effort than I put in, though, Tim.
You can't do a ballad, lads. Look, I like the Rain Song, but it goes on way too damn long, and it tries way too damn hard, okay? It's like, okay, we're going to do the uber ballad. We're going to out-ballad the Beatles. Dudes, you can't out-ballad the Beatles, okay? You can't. And there was that little description that the opening chord is the same as something. And listen to the labored lyrics where Page is trying to be, Plant is trying to be profound and love story like and such, and compare that to the lyrics to something. Just give it up, dudes. Just go do some kick-ass rock and stop trying to do ballads. Okay,
Yeah.
don't listen to George Harrison. He's not always right, just most of the time. So I mean, I really like the Rain song, but it reminded me sort of a future history kind of thing. It reminded me of a Dan Fogelberg song, whom I love very much. It's just, like I said, it tries too hard. Rock and roll just kicks ass, okay? I love that song. You're right, it's simple. It's probably technically not nearly as good as the Rain song, but it's a damn good song. So I scored it rock and roll 10-9.
I like it. I like it.
All right. So you mean, Tim, like lyrics like, I curse the gloom that set upon us, but I know that I love you so. That didn't do it for you, huh?
No, it didn't. They were just too labored.
Yeah, I get it.
I prefer a big-legged woman ain't got no soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Freddie King wrote a song called Big Leg Woman, and she had a short mini skirt, and he said, promise me, baby, and never make me feel like dirt. Now, that's a much better song about it.
That's much deeper than the Rain song.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm sure Giving the Dog a Bone from AC/DC is about a fat girl,
That may have been true, Pete.
Let's go ahead and do round 3, Over the Hills and Far Away versus Battle of Evermore, an impossible round. So here's what I'm going to try.
Okay.
Over the Hills and Far Away is a band that's run out of all its old ideas. All the old Yardbirds stuff has been used, and they've really been left with, like, how do you figure it out? And it's songs like this that make a band like Led Zeppelin able to say, if you want to talk about the greatest bands of all time, you have to consider this song, because this is well into their career and they're still getting to new places. This is such a fantastic body of work. All 4 of them are absolutely contributing in ways that just very, very few bands can do. I would say, if I'm going to pick a nit, and we try to do that here, the middle bridge is a little bit long and virtuosic. Like, I'm like, enough. Like, shorten that up by 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and we'd be fine. We don't need quite so much incredibleness, but it's also, I also can't blame anybody for wanting to hear more Jimmy Page and Bonzo and all those guys going after it. And then you have the audacity to start going after some Tolkien stuff in the Battle of Evermore, and it's really, really hard. I will take the non-conceptual, because that's one thing you do. Like, that's like a tricky pull out later on. Is like, let's do a concept album. And concept albums are fine. I love Red-Headed Stranger. It's one of my favorite albums ever. But I will take the non-conceptual Over the Hills and Far Away 10-9. How about you, Tim?
Pete, I must mention here that I wrote a book on Tolkien.
Uh-oh.
I'm writing another book on Tolkien, the military history of Middle-earth. So there is no bigger geek on earth than me, okay? Except that I did manage to move out of my parents' basement, and I have kissed a girl.
And you can sword fight. Well, no, that's kind of geeky, isn't it?
That's kind of geeky, actually.
Yeah.
Yes. I also, I lifted weights in high school and college, so no one would know what a geek I truly am. I hide it. Damn, this one was a hard one. Okay, like most of these are really hard ones. Okay, except there are a couple. Battle of Evermore. Now, according to the Wikipedia entry, and we know that's always right. Mm-hmm. This was supposedly a book that Plant, I guess, was reading on Scottish independence wars. But come on, give me a break, Pete. As you correctly identified, it's Tolkien.
Yeah.
The Dark Horde rides in force tonight. The ring wraiths ride in black. I'm pretty sure there were no ring wraiths riding with the Scots when they fought the English. Hell, they might have won if they'd had some. Okay. Still,
are we not getting like a Braveheart imitation or something? Say they run away.
No, I'm just not. I'm not buying Braveheart on that one. I'm just not. Okay, it's Tolkien. It was really, really cool that folk singer lady, Sandy Denny's her name, was singing with Plant. That was awesome. I love that stuff. Look, I go to Renaissance festivals. Okay, like I said, I'm a geek. Okay, love this stuff. Over the Hills and Far Away, though. Again, it's also kind of Tolkien-esque, all right? It might be the greatest acoustic guitar opening ever, and that's saying something because pretty much every acoustic guitar opening that Zeppelin does is good. But then it turns about at 127, we start rocking out. Maybe it's the Kentucky Pumpkin Barrel Ale speaking, but I love the line, Mello is the man who knows what he's been missing, okay? And basically, again, my Tolkien geek is showing here, Battle of Evermore is a Lord of the Rings song. Over the Hills and Far Away is a Hobbit song. And I generally like the Lord of the Rings because I kill a lot more people, which I prefer. But I'm going to give this one to Over the Hills and Far Away 10-9.
Oh, all right. Scott, how about you? Who did you give it to?
Well, I unfortunately am not a big Tolkien fan, but I am a big fan of mandolin, and I love it in songs.
Yeah.
And Battle of Evermore has a lot of really great mandolin. So I want to just take a moment and give a shout out to John Paul Jones. Is probably the most underappreciated multi-instrumentalist in rock.
Great point.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, from just an instrumental standpoint, and I've really not ever put much stock in the lyrics in Led Zeppelin at all. 'Cause I'm kind of a numbskull. I just love music and how it makes me feel. So the lyrics sort of off to the side. So the Battle of Evermore, I enjoyed musically what the song is, and it's a nice change up. If you're listening to the album from start to finish and you come across this song, nothing wrong with it. Good song on a great album. But then you get to Over the Hills and Far Away. And really, I'm just going to sound like an echo from what you guys said. I love the intro. I love the way of the tempo change from acoustic to electric. You know what's interesting, though, is I never ever heard this song performed live until 2003 when the box set came out, How the West Was Won series, which I believe was 2003, and they had a performance of this song on there. And what I found really interesting, now this doesn't really relate to these two albums, but just as a side note, I love how Page took the rhythm and the lead and played them separately, consecutively in the live version. Obviously, he can't do both at the same time, but he actually took the song and made it longer by playing the rhythm, then the lead, and then going back to the rhythm. I thought that was really interesting, but the way this song is constructed is super cool. It's kind of like Stairway to Heaven on steroids, and it's always been one of my very favorite tunes. So for me, it's an easy, just like for you guys, Over the Hills and Far Away is a 10-9 winner over Battle of Evermore.
All right. Well, if that was hard, this ought to be fun. We're going to go ahead and do round 4, Stairway to Heaven versus The Crunge. I hope you guys have some opinions. Tim, what's yours?
Stairway to Heaven is the most overplayed, overrated song in rock history. But I don't give a damn. It is the Roman Empire of rock songs. Every rock song wants to be Stairway to Heaven, okay? I remember a couple of years ago I saw some geeky millennial poll where they trying to say some guitar solo from this pretender altar bridge group had outranked the solo on Stairway to Heaven. No, kids, crawl back to your cave and smoke your dope and vape. No, Stairway to Heaven is the Augustus Caesar, okay? No one else comes close, all right? So right away, you know it's going to win, okay? But I mean, it's like, it reminds me of some of the stuff we talked about with Boston, although Stairway to Heaven is a step above anything Boston did. But, we talked about how you heard More Than a Feeling or something so many times, and it's like, it doesn't even kind of register with you anymore. It's almost like elevator music. You've heard it so many times. I sit and listen to earphones of Stairway to Heaven. The song is amazing. It's amazing how it goes from acoustic to rock. I mean, the drums don't even come into, I wrote this down here, drums don't even come into a 417N. Which is almost criminal because John Bonham, I think, is probably the greatest rock drummer in history. But you don't get the drums until halfway through the song. I mean, and the lyrics, like you said, the lyrics, Led Zeppelin's about music, not lyrics. But these lyrics are actually kind of interesting. And again, they're sort of Tolkien-esque. We have a couple of lines about look to the west, rings of smoke through the trees, all that glitters is gold, or not gold, as the case may be. It's just an awesome song. And although it's perhaps the most overplayed song in history, that doesn't detract from its awesomeness. And what I find amazing is that they didn't release it as a single. It might still be number one if they released it as a single. So the Crunge is okay, but the Crunge, I mean, come on, that's like the Dacians up against the Romans. I mean, that's foreordained, okay? 10-8 Stairway to Heaven on this one.
Scott, do you have an opinion?
A Stairway to Heaven, Pete?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
I might have an opinion. Well, I think the first time I ever heard this song, I listened to it probably 25 times in a row because I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was an absolutely just beautiful song. Now, keep in mind, first time I'm this pimply little 15-year-old kid with no marijuana and no alcohol, but I had Led Zeppelin. And this song was just amazing. I mean, the guitar, what Tim said about the drums coming in around the 4-minute mark, I mean, what other band can do that and get away with it, right? But Page, the way he arranges songs, the arrangement of this song is like, I mean, There are some other songs in rock history that have been arranged like this and as well as this, but very, very few, right? This is in the pantheon of great arrangements. It's just an incredible concept for a song. The lyrics, they actually printed the lyrics out on the inner sleeve of the album, which I found fascinating. Why would they do that? They're Led Zeppelin. Who gives a shit about the lyrics? But they printed the lyrics for Stairway to Heaven. Weird. Anyway, the ending of the song and the crescendo that builds up is, for people who aren't familiar with Led Zeppelin and just listen and hear about it.
Who the fuck is that, by the way?
Yeah, right. Are there any people like that out there? I sure hope not. I mean, this is
Outer Mongolia, maybe, but that's about it.
Yeah,
Inner Mongolia, exactly. They got a really good.
Inner, outer, I don't know.
Yeah, they've got a really good cover band. Yeah.
if you don't get it with Stairway to Heaven, you never will. So we'll move on to the crunge. I mean, the crunge is like, so on Houses of the Holy, Led Zeppelin they have satisfied what they needed to do on the fourth album, which was get everybody off their back. They delivered a classic. They knew it. Now on Houses of the Holy, they can have fun. They can do whatever the fuck they want. And on this song, they said, we're just going to rip off James Brown and come up with this sort of funk soul thing. And I mean, I love the intro, the song, the drums, the bass line, and Page's riff all together. That's really cool, but it lasts for, 30 seconds, and then the song just kind of breaks down into, So it's 10-8. Stairway to Heaven is too great for most songs, but it's way too great for this song. So Stairway is a big winner. A knockdown.
I like it. Yeah, come on. It's Stairway to Heaven. And like you guys said, there's certain songs that do the impossible, and they get played a lot. Is Freebird overplayed? Yes, but no. Like, you can't ever get enough of that song. You can't ever get enough. And people, unless you really are a big dick, no one complains about the length of Stairway to Heaven because they do a lot in it. It's really like just a multi-part movement of a song. And like you said, Tim, that solo, if you want to say that someone else's solo is better, fine. Stairway to Heaven's a better song than whatever other thing that is. There are a lot of great people that play a lot of great things. But Page manages to be the entire song when necessary, but he's never too much, and especially here, it's just fantastic. And I actually like the lyrics quite a bit. I mean, I really think that they were pretty insightful. They talk about, enlightenment and how, the staircase is the wind, and that's such an important thing in terms of, like, if you want to be all transcendental and all that kind of thing. You can't get there through buying things. All that glitters isn't gold, or is it whatever. Yeah, let's focus our energy on becoming a bigger and better thing. And I think that's part of the message in this song. So you can't buy your way there. Avoid the sirens, avoid the pipers, and get to a Whispering Wind Stairway and let that be your guide. I think that's great. I have to say this, especially since Scott stole my James Brown stuff. No, it's all right. Take me to the bridge. Here's the English guys.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business, or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
No, it's all right. Take me to the bridge. Here's the English guys. Just like in when the Stones do the honky tonk song and they're putting horn sounds in there. Like, you guys need to spend 5 minutes in America if you're gonna mock it. Understand what you're mocking. Where's that confounded bridge? That stuff's a little silly. What I really want to say is, let's not forget that Jimmy Page is also the producer in these albums. And yes, if that's not doing some incredible double duty, I don't know what is. Just incredible to know that he's got that much talent, and he's, all of the extracurriculars that he's doing, and he's still putting all of this great work together. Hats off to you, Jimmy Page. 10-8 for Led Zeppelin IV. Round 5, Dancing Days versus Misty Mountain Hop. Let's go with Scott.
All right, so here we are. We just flipped the album over, and we're listening to side 2 because that's all we listen to right now is vinyl, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got their vinyl? All right, I got my vinyl. All right, so I'm going to start with Misty Mountain Hop. And, you know, I don't not like a lot of Led Zeppelin songs. I love them all. But there's some that I hate, even though I love them. Does that make any sense at all?
Sure.
Probably not. So I've kind of been turned off to Misty Mountain Hop forever. I mean, it's got this hippy-dippy, let's get stoned in the park protest sort of vibe going. It just didn't sound like Led Zeppelin. It wasn't genuine. It didn't work for me. Nor did the arrangement necessarily. Nothing about that song grabs me. But Dancing Days, that song grabs you right away. It's got this really, you know, kick-ass guitar right at the beginning of the song. Again, it comes right at you with that clean, fresh sound that's all over Houses of the Holy for the most part. Love this song. This song actually went to number 3 on the U.S. Billboard Hot Mainstream Rock Tracks. I don't know what the hell list that was, but in 1973, it got to number 3 on that. Dancing Days, pretty good opener for side 2 for Zeppelin. It's certainly good enough to take Misty Mountain Hop. So I'm going to say 10-9 for Dancing Days.
All right. Dancing Days versus Misty Mountain. Oh, man. Another tough round with 2 pretty good songs here. I like the Robert Plant that is falling in love or is in love more than the one that's mad. So when he sees that girl and he like kind of, in my head, he kind of like motions towards Jimmy Page, because I'm going to say this right now. If you want to be a better wingman than Jimmy Page, you've really got to work hard, because whatever you're going to do, he's going to make it sound better. He's still going to go slay the ladies on the side afterwards, but he's going to make sure that you've got that Robert's got his target and that it's all going to go well. It's just, this is why they're great, because everybody can do their part. And we're not going to talk about John Paul Jones or John Bonham in this song for me, but the 2 of them alone are able to just create this fantastic feeling with Dancing Days. I love the heck out of it. I love Misty Mountain Hop. I always want to say top, but I have to slow down and say hop. I love it. I think John Paul Jones really shines here between his keys and the bass, and the way that the bass, the keys, and the guitar kind of separate, and then they come together. It's like this confluence of sounds, and then they get apart, and they color. And just that kind of instrumentation and arrangement, I think it's notable. But there's... and I know folks are crazy about John Bonham. This song, for me, this is where I go, yes, he might be the greatest rock drummer, but you have to add the context of rock, because there's this song, I think he drums in a different way if he survives 10 more years and he has a chance to really evolve who he is and what he does. I love the melody in Misty Mountain Hop, but man, I like Dancing Days better, so I went 10-9. Tim?
Well, despite the fact that I'm a huge Tolkien geek, I agree with much of what you guys said about Misty Mountain Hop. It's hippies in Middle Earth. I think maybe they had a little too much pipe weed. The vocals are good. But, you know, I'm packing my bag for the Misty Mountains is cool, but it's just too hippie. It's too hippie. Now, to be fair, Dancing Days has that line about flower power. Okay, I think it's repeated twice, which is kind of annoying. But the crunchy guitar is awesome. And I just think Dancing Days just moves more, and it's not too, I don't know, I just like it better. So I went with Dancing Days 10-9 on this one.
Round 6, 4-stick versus Dire Maker. All right, so 4-stick. Here's some great drumming from John Bonham. But beyond that, this song's just a lot of noise to me. They didn't really like it and play it live at all, at least not as Led Zeppelin. It's heavy, but, you know, Black Sabbath is heavier, so it's not good for that reason. And frankly, I just don't dig it. This is a short album, and I think this is probably the weakest track on Led Zeppelin IV. And then we go to Dire Maker. Coincidentally, this is also a song that the band didn't seem to like, and they called it sort of a joke, you know, that kind of survived in the studio and made it to the album. And so we have this weird weak track versus weak track floor of the album conversation happening, and only because I like the guitar lick, it's catchier on Dire Maker, do I allow for this, but I'm going to go ahead and call this one 10-9 for Dire Maker. Tim, how'd you do it?
Pete, I always am confused. Is it Dire Maker or Jermaker?
I don't know. I'm not French.
Yeah. Jermaker. I agreed largely on 4 sticks. I mean, okay, so supposedly he used 4 drumsticks to do this, and they had to do a bunch of takes, and only one worked. They only did it once live. But really, I mean, it's just kind of an instrumental with some sort of made up lyrics. And so I just don't really think it works that well as a song. I mean, it's kind of cool. Of course, anytime they play, it's cool, but that doesn't make it a good song. Jamaica is reggae meets doo-wop. And, I used to really kind of hate this song, but then my wife put it as the ringtone on her phone, and I, couldn't say I didn't like it. So it probably would have made a really good Bond theme for Live and Let Die, except that was already taken by an incredibly great song by another guy that we've talked about before. So, Jamaica, all right, kind of has throwaway lyrics, but I just think it's a cool as hell song. So I scored this 10-8 for Jamaica.
Man, you guys don't like Four Sticks at all, do you?
No.
Garbage.
Oh. So for Jamaica, there's this old and kind of stupid joke that goes, "My wife's gone to the West Indies." Jamaica? No, she went on her own.
Hey.
Yeah, so apparently that's how they got the song title. So, well, and like Pete and a lot of people, I did call this song Dire Maker until probably around 1998 when I heard that, it's actually Jamaica. All right, whatever, but that's a big deal. This was, again, like the Crunge, this was Led Zeppelin just having fun and doing whatever the hell they want. So Robert Plant thought the song was going to be a hit. They put it on the album. It's not that great. Let's talk about Four Sticks. All right, so it's well known that Plant and Page did a lot of traveling back east into India and Morocco in the early 70s. So this song is one of those songs where that influence really infiltrated their music. Early on Led Zeppelin III, we had Friends, maybe to a degree Gallows Pole, but Four Sticks has a lot of that Moroccan influence. There's a little interlude in the beginning of the song. I never knew what that was until I looked it up. It's a VCS3 synthesizer that Jonesy was playing, which is kind of interesting. It kind of breaks the song up. I just love the groove of the song, so it's always stuck with me. Round 7 can be kind of a rough round in a lot of album fights, but this song to me has always been a really solid song on this album, and especially with Jamaica. Four Sticks is a 10-9 winner in my opinion.
10-9 winner.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Round 7, No Quarter versus Going to California. Tim, how did you have it?
I really like Going to California. It's a great acoustic tune. I think his acoustics, Page's acoustics, are particularly inspired on this. And I'm old enough to remember when California was actually sort of a utopian ideal for the rest of the country, instead of the Jerry Brown, Nancy Pelosi hellhole that it's been turned into. So, it's kind of funny to listen to this. I'm going to California. What a great place. Good luck with that. Hope you keep some of your income when you get there. But again, it's kind of a Renfest type song. I was waiting for someone to yell "dilly dilly" at the end of it, but that didn't work. No Quarter is straight out of Valhalla. I love this song. Valhalla or Middle Earth, what the hell's the difference sometimes. The lyrics don't start till like a minute 46 in. I just love these lyrics. They're very Nordic. He mentions Thor in the song. Wearing steel that's bright and true, they choose the path where no one goes. They hold no quarter, they ask for no quarter. Great piano stuff in the middle by Jones, and then it starts playing off the piano against Page's guitar. I just think it's a cool as hell song. So I gave this No Quarter 10-9.
10-9. All righty. Scott, how did you have round 7?
Well, I love No Quarter too, Tim, but Going to California I'm going to talk about first. For me, Going to California is really an extension of some of the songs they did on Led Zeppelin III. But I don't really think that Going to California took what they did on 3 and really made it any better. I felt the song could have just been placed on Led Zeppelin III and would have been fine. It's a really good song. Apparently it's about Joni Mitchell and California, and Southern California and whatever. But it just doesn't advance beyond what they were trying to do with folk music on 3. No Quarter, this song scared the fuck out of me. I tell you what, man. The doom and gloom lyrics, the synthesized piano, it's just creepy. And I mean this in the best possible way, right? Page has got this fuzzy, freaky guitar tone. I had never heard a song like this before when I first listened to No Quarter. And then I don't, like I said earlier, I don't pay a lot of attention to the lyrics. That to carry news that must get through. Was he talking about the U.S. Postal Service and mail deliveries? I no freaking clue. Well, proof that I missed the point on most Led Zeppelin songs when it came to the lyrics. But this was Led Zeppelin doing prog rock, right? They got the Mellotron. It's there. John Paul Jones is playing about 5 different keys and the Mellotron on this song. In concert, they would stretch the song out to 35 minutes, and he would start playing Rachmaninoff. I mean, there are only a couple of bands who could pull that off. Yes, Led Zeppelin, maybe Genesis, and that's probably about it. Pretty cool stuff. For me, No Quarter was a unique entry in this band's song list, so for me, it's an easy 10-9 winner. Easy over Going to California.
An easy 10-9 winner. Well, look, here's what I heard. I heard space sounds and dated themes and weird effects from No Quarter. And I never realized how many tracks there were that I really don't care for. But this version of No Quarter, and I know they worked the heck out of this thing later on, but they had to add in things like Rachmaninoff, and I'm sure that means Bolero was played. And if you play Bolero, you've got the greatest hook of all time in your song. So I don't blame them for reworking it and getting it right. Like this song, for me, when I heard it, I'm like, oh, this just needs more time in the studio. This just isn't it. I'm glad they kept at it, and I do enjoy what they do with it now, or what they've done with it on subsequent recordings. But I just didn't care for this versus Going to California. Again, now we already know I love a falling in love plant, so he's like, fuck this lady, I'm out of here. I'm going to spend my money on an airplane. But here's where sometimes, like, I listen to the lyrics and I'm like, oh, come on, you guys, you can do better than this. Took my chances on a big jet plane. Never let them tell you that they're all the same. It's a near rhyme, and it's not even good. So, and maybe he doesn't mean, the planes aren't all the same. Like, oh, it's a DC-1011. You really got to get on the, the McDonnell Douglas. Who cares? It's just not a very good lyric, and I hate to see that from them. But I like adventure and buying an airplane and going and trying to find a girl that lives on a mountaintop in California and with love in your eyes. I think that's a good theme, and it's better than No Quarter because, unlike Tim, I don't like killing people. I like love. So I'm going to go 10-9 here in round 7, the penultimate round. And now we are going to get... Actually, no, we got a little bit of time. Let's talk about these lyrics. Sometimes those guys get there. Sometimes they borrow from the Hobbit series and everything. What do you guys think of the lyrics these guys come up with, at least on these 2 albums? Scott?
Well, for decades, I've paid so little attention to lyrics on Led Zeppelin songs that I'm still learning what they are. I mean, before the internet, we didn't have any way to know what the lyrics were. I mean, you could put your ear right up to the speaker and still not know what the hell Robert Plant is singing. So once they started publishing lyrics and you had access to them, then maybe I could do a little research, but I never was driven to do that. So, I mean, I'm still... the song, the reference to Going to California where you're talking about an airplane, completely went over my head, just like airplanes do.
Tim, you read a lot. What did you get out of it?
And I don't.
I think that most of the time with Zeppelin, the lyrics are sort of just ancillary to the music. And sometimes they're okay. I mean, Stairway to Heaven, like you said, I think is those lyrics are okay. I think that when they really, really try to be profound, like they did with the Rain song, I think this falls flat. I think they try too hard on the lyrics. So generally, I think that, a Led Zeppelin song is probably, 80% music and 20% lyrics, and sometimes less than 20%. But usually we don't give a damn because the music is so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we definitely know about that, right? Like we've learned that you don't make words at the expense of the groove. And this band, they can find a groove and they can find the hooks, and a lot of those words are played by Jimmy Page's guitar. So I guess you could just look for his guitar and be like Scott and be like, what words? Is there an airplane? I didn't see it. I'll listen to Jimmy Page play 15 different versions of a guitar on a song.
Right. And probably a guitar with 2 or 3 necks on it. So
yeah, that's true too.
Hey Pete, let me add this real quick too. It reminded me, because I'm a huge Elton John fan, And, the rap that like Rolling Stone would always have on Elton John was that, well, Bernie writes the lyrics and Elton just writes this music. And so it's not coming out of Elton's, psyche or heart or brain or, wherever it comes from, which is one reason they love Lennon or to a lesser extent McCartney or, Bob Dylan or somebody like that. And I think we're getting not a little, much of this effect with these guys, because generally it's the case with Zeppelin, right? That Page writes the music, a lot of the music, and Plant writes the lyrics a lot. I mean, sometimes there's collaborations, but generally I think it's a lot of that sort of Elton John, Bernie Taupin syndrome, where probably the music comes first and then, here, put some lyrics to that so we can do it in concert and make another $100 million.
Yeah. We've learned a lot about songwriting process here. We've had Allie Willis on the show, and you can't write a song better than her. I mean, she wrote September and Boogie Wonderland, for crying out fucking loud. So, she, what's Rolling Stone ever written about her? Sometimes I just kind of don't care what they have to say. Also, I know there's a lot of people that do that. The Edge and Bono. Edge goes out and tries to make a sound, and Bono tries to make words to it. And sometimes one comes first, and it doesn't matter. It works.
Good point. Yeah.
In excess, Michael Hutchence can't write a tune, but you give him a tune, and he'll get everybody in that room to get naked because he knows the words to sing. So, I don't care how you get there. And what is Bernie Taupin going to do by himself? He can write a great song, but, someone's got to perform it. So
that's right. He doesn't live in a mansion just writing lyrics or writing poems.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Like, I wrote a poem, Mommy. That's just not going to
do. Right. Very good point, Pete.
We're trying over here.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and do it. Round 8, When the Levee Breaks versus the Ocean. Scott, kick us off.
The Ocean, another song of Led Zeppelin just having fun in a way. They're paying tribute to their fans on this song. And, I mean, it's got a great riff. The Ocean is a cool finishing song. That's The Ocean. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'll be by later or not to pick up my check. Let's talk about When the Levee Breaks, because When the Levee Breaks is, I think, one of the most incredible songs Led Zeppelin. I'm trying not to go overboard on this, but I absolutely love When the Levee Breaks. I'm going to pick a nit with it, though, first. Is that Jimmy Page created a song here in the quote-unquote studio that they can't really replicate live. If they were ever going to perform this song live, it was going to sound completely different, right? So they're in the Headley Grange house. This is an old 1795 stone building that used to be an infirmary. And a bunch of bands rented this out to record music. And I think most people are aware that they took John Bonham's drum kit and put it downstairs, so they created that amazing echo effect with his drums that start off the song. But what I did not understand for a long, long time was the fact that they recorded Robert Plant's harmonica backwards on this song.
Yes.
Once I heard that, it was like the coolest freaking thing. It's like Page, and we've been alluding to this earlier, he is a genius. And this song proved it. Anybody who doesn't understand the genius of Jimmy Page, listen to When the Levee Breaks. Everything about this song has to do with him. He made this sound. And it's one of the most incredible songs ever put to vinyl that I can imagine. It's an incredible finishing song. So just in the context of this album fight, it's the 8th song. It's going up against the Ocean. This is not a real battle, right? I could have gone 10-8 on it. I'm going to go 10-9 out of respect for music that we have to work with. When the Levee Breaks is an easy winner here in this round.
Nice. So I had When the Levee Breaks. Nice. Come on. The drumming in this, it's everywhere. Yeah. And however they mic these drums, it's incredible. And then how many samples come out of this thing. Everybody loves this thing. So I wanted to say, like, sometimes you get to a point in your career when you're really brilliant where you sort of just become what everybody else is going to use. Like, it's just no way around it. And John Bonham, for sure, is that kind of level of thing. And it's kind of like for decades, and even still a little bit, pilots, when talking on the radio and the headset, would kind of have a Chuck Yeager effect when they talked, because Chuck Yeager was just the pilot, and they all so that's sort of what John Bonham is, and that's why he's so important. It's just you can't escape his sounds, his techniques, his approach. The way they mic that bass drum, it's just fantastic. And then you'll appreciate this, Scott. I said, the hippie trippy voice effect. I don't like that because there is some hippy dippiness in these albums. That's not always a good thing. I think that effect hasn't really aged well, but I did like that reverse harmonica. I like The Ocean a lot, and I like When the Levee Breaks. But ultimately, for me, I scored this 10-9 for The Ocean because I just like The Ocean a little bit more. So, sorry, but I disagree with you on this one. But we're going to see what Tim has to say. I'm sure he'll sort it out for us. Tim?
Well, When the Levee Breaks is one of my 3 favorite Zeppelin songs, along with Stairway to Heaven and Dazed and Confused, which I just think is possibly the greatest rock song ever. Yeah, I mean, I did not know they played the harmonica backwards. That's cool. That's really cool. I didn't realize that. It's just an awesome song. Again, as you pointed out, Bonham. I mean, has Bonham ever played bad drum riffs? I don't think so, but he's particularly good on this. What I liked about it was that the sage advice for people to live in floodplains, okay? Crying won't help you. Praying won't do you no good. When the levee breaks, mama, you got to move. I wish to hell a lot of Americans would listen to that, particularly since we just had a hurricane down here in Georgia where I live. Anyway, I know they weren't giving advice for that, but it works for that. That's just a great song. The Ocean is a good song. Like you said, Scott, it's a love affair. It's a love letter to the fans. You got that kind of nice. Besides the kind of grungy Zeppelin thing going on here, you got that kind of doo-wop thing in the middle, which is kind of interesting. But it just doesn't hold a candle to When the Levee Breaks, which I scored a 10-8 When the Levee Breaks.
And I guess we should account for the fact that this is a bit of a cover, and we could worry about who wrote it, but they're credited as songwriters along with Memphis Minnie, whoever the heck that was. So whatever she had done with the song and the words she wrote, it became something else. So I know we have to always account for covers because we want to make sure original work is being credited over somebody copying somebody else. But in this case, I think we're fine with that. And I also want to add in that reverse harmonica had an echo effect. So the echo comes to reverse before the actual harmonica part too, which just adds another layer of coolness to what the things that Jimmy Page came up with and the ideas they had. I mean, it's just such a neat thing. So that gives us the end of the fight here. Let's actually have Richard do his post-fight analysis. Richard?
When you take 2 of the best albums from the greatest band in the history of rock and roll, you not only get a great fight, you also get a very close one. Let's dive into the numbers and see what put it over for Led Zeppelin IV. And the short answer is, and no surprise, it's Stairway to Heaven. All 3 judges gave round 4 a knockdown for Stairway to Heaven. Now that was expected, but all 4 agreed it was a knockdown. That's 3 lost points right there on top of already losing the 3 points for losing the round. But if you peek behind the curtain, you'll notice it was only a 1-point fight. Of interest here, 2 of the judges had it 4 rounds to 4 rounds. A tie in rounds, and 1 judge actually had it 5 rounds to 3 for Houses of the Holy. Houses actually won the fight by rounds, so that tightens the gap up quite a bit. Both albums had 6 of 9 points from expected rounds. So what ultimately hurt Houses the most? Well, if you look at round 8, one of the rounds that Houses was supposed to win easily, it actually had a knockdown scored against it. All things being pretty equal, you're going to lose if you can't stay up for one of your stronger rounds. This was a great one, guys. Personally, I think as a whole, I like Houses of the Holy start to finish a little bit more than Led Zeppelin IV, but I love them both. Back to you guys.
Yeah, it's clear. So here's how we scored it. We had a split decision, which is not a surprise because Richard knows what he's doing. But we had Tim, who had this 75-74 for Houses of the Holy. And then Scott and I both had Led Zeppelin IV winning with the exact same score, 76-75. And this is a bit of an oddity, but all of the judges thus far have scored Houses of the Holy a 75. So we all agree on the quality in terms of the points, but Tim has a slightly different thing. But Tim also was a little quicker with the knockdowns too. So Tim, what are your thoughts post-fight?
Just to echo what I was saying earlier, I appreciated the fact that this made me sit down and do some homework and actually listen to these songs and listen to the lyrics, which, as I said, I don't normally do. They're kind of background music for things that I do in my life. And you kind of forget when you relegate music, especially a band as great as Led Zeppelin, to sort of background music, in the weight room or something, to that, you forget how great they are. And I appreciated that, I was forced to listen to it. And I can clearly see why these were rated Let's see. One of them, Led Zeppelin IV was according to Rolling Stone, not to bring up Rolling Stone again, but I'm going to. They had the 69th greatest album of all time, and they had Houses of Holy 148. But you can certainly see why, Led Zeppelin IV sold 30-some million, almost 40 million copies. It's just, they're both really good albums. I could see why you could pick Led Zeppelin IV ahead of it. I just, going by individual songs, I just kind of went with the other one.
Scott, final thoughts for post-fight?
Well, as I was done, working on the album fight, I just reflected on Led Zeppelin's career in these two albums. So this was a peak for the band. These were albums 4 and 5, and they'd go on to do some nice things as far as other albums and individual songs, more in particular. But this was the greatest height that the band would ever reach. And it was interesting as I started to look at history and what happened to the band. Once they got past this point, they had to end their tour in 73 because Plant's voice was starting to go out on him. They came back in 75 and Page broke his hand and they had to cut their tour short then. Then they got back together in 77. See, they only apparently tour an odd number of years. I don't know why. But in 77, Robert Plant's son died. The year before that, they were in a car accident. Plant broke his leg. And then 79, Page and Bonham were badly addicted to drugs and alcohol. So they had a lot of shit happen to them after these two albums came out. And so I found that interesting. They lived high, this was the greatest band in the world, where we're having this album fight right now between 1971 and 73. These guys never got bigger than they were right now. This was it. This was their height.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, because you do have we're well past Led Zeppelin III at this point with these two albums. But you're right. Like when you look at, say, Presence, that's not an album where you're like, God, I can't stop listening to Presence. It's an album. It's a short album. It's got, I think, 7 tracks on it, and not a lot of like right now, off the top of my head, I know the album exists, but I can't think of one song from it. Doesn't mean that there's not a monster on there, but I certainly couldn't name 6 songs like I easily could off either one of these albums. It's an interesting point talking about the peak and what comes from it. So you're really looking at like a very strong 5-album compilation, and then the rest of the stuff is sort of hit and miss. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. That's a great point.
And you know what else, Pete, I was going to mention, I should have a moment ago, was that, they never really had a whole lot they only had one top 10 hit. I think Whole Lotta Love was their only top 10 hit in the States on the regular track chart. They only had, they only had a few top 40s. This was an album, much like I think you could say probably U2 today, U2 in the last 20 years or whatever. So this is a group that sells a lot of albums, makes a ton of money in concert, but didn't have a whole lot of singles. So it's kind of interesting to look at the specific tracks in an album when really I think people were buying them for the totality of the album, and not any for really, I guess, specific tracks, you could say.
Yeah, I agree. Good point, Tim. Yeah, back then people bought albums for the entire listening experience. It wasn't like today where, everything's digitized and you can just listen to singles all day long.
Yeah, it's funny how they count album sales now is quite different. So someone like Rihanna, and this is not in any way a knock on Rihanna, but she appears to have a lot more sales than a band like Led Zeppelin would, because just of how songs are sold nowadays. And it is, you think about the albums from the early 70s and just the quality of music coming out then too. I don't want to knock this era or any other era, but gosh, that early 70s time was just thick with great music, and it's kind of hard to get on top of the charts when you've got all of these fantastic albums coming out. It's an area where we focus a lot of attention with our album fights.
Yep. It was a very experimental time. There were some bands that were doing incredible things right at this time these two albums came out.
All right, fellas. But as always, it's super, it's fantastic to be able to do this with you guys, to hang out, talk music with my friends, and share that with the world. And like you, I've got to listen to these albums again and get so much out of them. I also never knew the harmonica thing. That's the thing I learned today, was the reverse harmonica with echo and how much I like that sound. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Tim.